Huge news this week with Lexus announcing the end of the Lexus LS. This is huge, mainly because this is the vehicle that the brand launched with back in 1989 with the original LS and has always been the flagship ever since. But tides have been slowly changing, as we know, with other models becoming the fan favorite. However, the LS is still one of my favorite cars in the lineup. So let's take this opportunity to explore all of my videos that I've made on the LS. I'm Dustin Mason from Performance Lexus in St. Catharines. Make sure you hit like and subscribe for more Lexus related content. And of course, hop over to my main channel, A Dusty Life, for more content from me.
Harvey, what do I always tell you? Life is this. I like this. This is the 2024 Lexus LS 500. And today, I'm gonna show you if this car is still worth the $100,000+ price tag in 2024, and I'll go over as many of the little details as possible. I'm Dustin Mason from Performance Lexus in St. Catharines. Make sure you hit like and subscribe for more Lexus related content, and let me know in the comments below what you think of the new LS. So getting right to the styling, and the most important part of this particular LS 500 is the paint. And I know on camera it might not be able to see like anything special, but this paint option is called Silver Illusion and cost this owner just over the $3,000 mark at $3,350. Now I was a little nervous because that is the highest cost paint choice that you could possibly get in the Lexus lineup. And when we called Lexus Canada originally to find out some more info about it, no one else had it. So no one could give me any personal experience with how the color looks. I will say it's very interesting and has a lot of character to it. I know at first from far away it looks just like it's silver, but as you get up close, there's no metallic in the paint, which is very rare for silver. So it's gonna be interesting to see this outside on a sunny day, in the summertime, in the wintertime, because it does seem to sort of absorb the other colors around it and give you a little bit of that reflection, even though it's almost like a very soft satin type silver. In fact, one of the people that are here today said it's kind of like a silk blanket or a silk, like a silver silk pillow. And it does have that soft look to it and feel. It makes you just want to like put your face on it, not gonna lie. Okay, let's look at the front end. So this is the luxury package on the LS 500. We have that very F-Sport style grille that comes standard now. It's like a gray color. It's still trimmed in a really classy silver. There is some angles and stuff like that at the top of the bumper that might be hard to see. But up here we have some character lines, which is really nice. We have those triple beam, adaptive, intelligent LED headlights with the nice big daytime running lamp sort of that runs underneath. And on the LS, even the amber signal lights are very bold and demand a lot of attention, which is nice. Towards the bottom, we have some intercoolers off to the side in this vent. So one of them is sort of blocked off and is just for looks. Actually, there's a little bit of vent on that side, but on the other side, there is a lot more. This actually goes to the intercooler for the turbocharger that's in it. We also still have some headlight washers, some parking sensors, the tow hook cover right underneath there, as well as the Lexus little emblem right here on top of the headlight. Now in terms of body lines, again, the silver sort of accentuates in some light, kind of washes it out in other light, but we have this body line from the bumper that sort of goes to the side and joins up with this little more like it's like a little ditch, probably for the air. And then there's the big one right up towards the center, and that's symmetrical on both sides. It is a big front end. Sometimes in pictures, people don't really get that vibe from it, but when you see it in person, when you see it on the road, I promise you that it has a lot of presence from that front. Let's go over to the side profile. First, we'll look at the 20-inch Hyper Silver wheels. Now, the nice thing about the LS for 2024 is there's 4 different types of wheels. This one is the luxury package, which is very similar to the executive, just a bit different of a color. Hyper Silver, I always find, is really classy. It goes with almost everything in the lineup in terms of color. In fact, I can't think of a single color it doesn't go with. And that is attached to a Bridgestone tire on this particular model. You'll see as we get past that fender, again, the paint looks very satiny and very soft. We have this body line start to appear above the door handles, and the mirror is all blacked out. But I will say, this mirror is different for 2024. And there's a little bit extra of a bulge underneath because the car now has things like intelligent parking, and that needed some more sensors built into that mirror, the bottom of the mirror. Looking at the other things, so the doors are super heavy and solid, and I'll just show you doing that. But also, when you go to close it, it's one of the very few Lexi, that have soft close. And it's funny because any of my friends that have soft close doors, whenever you get out of their car, they're always like, shh, use the soft close, because I paid for that. So you gotta get your money's worth of all the times you shut the door. But I do wish Lexus had more of those. Profile-wise, as we get to the back of the vehicle, it is a very long sedan. It's the longest sedan we have. And you can sort of see that stretched out. Even the size of this back door gives you a really good indication of the size of this vehicle, but it still has a coupe-like design. So as you look at that back, it sort of tapers off, sort of like a fastback, even though this quarter panel is huge. And you can see just by me standing about it, or even just look versus that 20-inch wheel versus this quarter panel, how big it is. So I do really like that even the side profile has presence, especially with the Hyper Silver and the chrome. Again, it just shows a lot of class. I think it would probably pop a little bit more with the black, but it still washes together really nicely in the silver. Okay, so at the back of the LS 500, we have these gorgeous layered taillights. It's sort of like what the LC has, but that does sort of with hologram magic, and actually has like solid versions of them, but it still looks really nice and catches your eye. We have LS 500 at the bottom. No, it doesn't stand for large sedan. It stands for luxury sedan, and it was the first sedan that Lexus released. All-wheel drive emblem because in Canada, all the LSs are all-wheel drive. Towards the bottom of the bumper, we have the tow hook cover to the right, and then this is actually sort of like a matte plastic gray, and we have the exhaust integrated into that. There's not really much of a diffuser. It's more just like a little trim kit, but it still has the exhaust ports, which is nice because a lot of cars don't have that anymore. In terms of the trunk, the opening switch is off to the right. It is power open and power closed, but you can also manually yank it open and closed. It's absolutely massive. You can fit a couple sets of golf clubs for sure. It does get a little bit skinnier as it gets deep, and there's no pass-through anymore, and the seats don't fold down. And a lot of that is to keep that cabin as quiet and insulated and soundproof as possible, because a lot of sound in cars comes from the trunk. Not many people know that, but that is the case. Because the LS has air ride, there are some components under that fake floor in the back, so there's not a whole lot of room under there, but there is a little secret feature that I think everybody should know about. Off to the driver's side of the trunk, there is this little doohickey that can be twisted off, and inside there's an opening. In that opening, there is a little lever that you can pull out to open up the gas cap if you can't open it from the inside or if the power's dead or whatever. So there's a manual way to get in the gas cap. Okay, so sitting in the back of the LS, it's almost like the car started being designed at some point in history with the back in mind. And there's a lot to go over. At first, it might not look, super luxurious and full of amenities, but once you pull down this, which softly opens, it comes to life with this little screen that's back here. On here, I can control everything from the seat to the music, to the shade and lamps and the sunshades that come up and down. All that can be controlled from this little doohickey right here. And in some of the higher packages, you even have things like massage seats. But there's so many other details of the LS back seat. For one, that I just learned, is even the map lights, which is just above me here, there's two different types. One of them has two different settings. So the map lights have a bright and dim setting. And then there's the dome light to the right of it, which when you look at, it has all of these crystals in it. So it's even appealing to look at because it's like a light behind a little glass full of crystals, which is really nice. You can also tell that the LS, and for a long time, has been designed with the back seat in mind, because we even have a vanity mirror in a big one too, for both rear seat passengers with a little beauty light. And I remember the story going is Lexus designed this car similar to how Toyota designed some of their full-size sedans so that the celebrity in the back seat could check their hair or makeup, if applicable, before getting out of the car to the paparazzi. So that's just a little fun fact for you. Hopefully that's true. I'm pretty sure it is. Also, we have this beautiful brown interior and the ambient lighting on the LS. Usually in a showroom like this, it's hard to see the ambient lighting, but on this, it sort of accentuates some artwork. On this particular model, we have some beautiful stitching and wood Alcantara leather on the door, and the light sort of just shines on some of that. We have some really nice wood grain, some metal, aluminum grills and things like that. And it's always really fun to be able to use the screen to play with the sunshades. So that's all through the screen here, which is really fun to do. Also in the center, we have an armrest with 2 USB-Cs. We have a couple cup holders up here on the front, and you can open the armrest from both sides, by the way, just by pressing these buttons. The backs of the seats have some wood grain as well. We have some vents in the center with the power outlet on the bottom. We also have some vents on the B pillar facing you as well. Some suit hooks at the top, and again, a really nice headliner that has sort of like that Alcantara feel. Oh, also, I forgot to mention, the armrest on the door is sort of floating on its own and is really comfortable. It's more of an armrest than it is a door, in my opinion. I will say, my head sort of is touching, when I'm sitting up straight right now, my head is sort of tickling the the bottom of that ceiling, but I can actually recline. So as you can see, I can actually recline a lot. So this is the full recline. Actually, no, sorry. I was able to do it some more. And then I have lumbar, some shoulder support, my headrest. So I can be pretty lounged back here. I'm 6'1". My legs still aren't touching the front seat, the driver's seat, which by the way is far back because it's in the easy exit mode. Maybe if I really push them together, it'll touch. But on a car ride, I would have a lot of comfort here and still have a ton of seat adjustments, like the shoulder bolster, which is amazing. I have a bottom lumbar. I even have cushion that I can raise up on the bottom, and some pelvic adjustments, which I've never heard of. And you could press it to automatic, where the car will just kind of put you back to that sitting upright. It's like when you're in the back of a plane and it's landing and you gotta like put your seat back upright and fold up your tray table. That's what the Lexus does for you. Okay, some final things. We have this big fish mouth type map pocket on the back of the front seats. And that's pretty much it for amenities. Lots of speakers for the Mark Levinson sound system. And let me show you the front. Okay, so I did exaggerate something earlier. The LS isn't actually designed only for the back seat, but also the front seat, and there is some updates to 2024. When you're sitting in it, there is some beautiful appointments, things like this aluminum trimmed dash, which even when you just feel with your fingers, I don't know why I touch everything, it's not just pleasing to look at, but it also is very high quality to touch. The wood grain inserted steering wheel is very light when you're going around corners and when you're just parking and stuff like that. It is very nice to touch, especially with the wood grain inserts. I do really love that. And speaking of wood grain, the wood grain in the center is equally as nicely appointed, with this big panel being mostly wood now, because we got rid of the touchpad. And when we got rid of the touchpad, we brought that screen a little bit closer and we replaced it with something we needed in the LS, and that was some quick buttons for the seats and the climate control for the seats. So now we have a button for heat, cool, heated steering wheel. We have the rear sunshades we can up and down just by pressing this, where just 2 years ago, you had to do it through the screen and it could be quite cumbersome, even when there was a shortcut at 1.2. But we also have some other new features like self-parking. So as you go up to a parking spot, you can hit the little intelligent park button and your mirror will scan the parking spot. You can let go of the steering wheel, it'll park the car itself, and it is amazing. We also have bird's eye view beside that. We also do have a little shortcut button for some more seat controls, like massaging seats, which, by the way, if you've never felt the massaging seats on a 2018 or higher LS 500, you are missing out. It is unbelievable, and unlike any other massaging seat that I've ever felt in a car, where it's not just about massaging, it's not just about vibrating and moving around, it actually is using pressure points and feels like someone is actually using their thumbs, which is really nice for a long drive. You definitely get less stiff, in my opinion. And there's a little shortcut for that right beside the bird's eye view one, and you can hit appointments. So you can hit, click on your seat, customize it a little bit, but also you can do the massage, click on the seat, do upper body, centrifugal, central pedal, lower body, lumbar, etc., etc. You can change the power, you can change the intensity. It's very intuitive and works amazing. Another little detail about the inside of the LS that a lot of people don't realize until they own it is the volume knob. So it has this volume knob, and the outer collar of the volume knob is the tuner. So if you're one of those people like me that go through radio stations all the time, you can tune, adjust the volume all very quickly. We saw this only really translate into the ES after the LS. So I'm not sure why we haven't seen that in other Lexus vehicles. Otherwise, we have the new driver monitor, which is for things like traffic jam assist and that new Lexus Safety Sense 3.0. So if you're driving and you get into traffic, that will monitor your face so that it can turn on traffic jam assist, which is really a great feature. Also, we have an all new heads-up display, and very surprising Lexus did this, but I'm all for it, a new gauge cluster. And the reason that's such a big deal is because for many years, it was that LFA-inspired TFT display where you would move the mechanical thing over, but now it's this very sharp, multi-layered or multi-page display, and it reminds me a lot of the new TX. It's almost like they tested it in the TX and worked out really well, so they put it in the 2024 LS. It's very sharp, it's gorgeous. In my opinion, I don't need that LFA-inspired TFT display anymore. We also have some heads-up display, and also, this is a really cool feature that not a lot of people know, and that is the height, the different height that you can adjust. So you can sort of have it when you park the car will raise up so that it's easy to get in and out, and then when you start driving, it lowers down again. So that's using the air ride. It's a cool feature for anybody that likes the height of an SUV but wants a car. I think that gives it so that it's a no-brainer for both. We also have the digital mirror instead of just a regular mirror, so you can flip that. We have the Mark Levinson sound system all around, and I could go on and on and on about the interior of this LS. But I will say one thing. It's not the limousine style car anymore. And I don't mean because it doesn't have the amenities of that. I mean the drive. Because of the power plant and the suspension and all of the tuning, it's actually fun to drive, even if you don't drive anybody else around. It's just yourself. It's a blast. So just because you don't need people with backseat support and seat adjustments and stuff like that, the LS is a blast to drive. So there is one hidden feature that I learned today, and that's this little divot here near the armrest. When you open up the armrest, which can be opened from either side, you can see inside there's this little insert that I was like, what is that for? That doesn't make any sense. And then I realized there's padding, like very soft foam padding, if I stick my hand on there. And then I realized that's where you put your phone. So you just slide your phone on this little hidden pocket, and it's a wireless charger, and it has like a little change shelf above it, and it's all hidden, and your phone would just sort of sit right there. Very smart, Lexus. Good job. So a lot of my viewers always ask, what about under the hood? Well, under the hood of the LS, we have a 3.4 liter twin turbo V6 with 416 horsepower and 442 foot-pounds of torque. There's not a whole lot you can see, but there is some really nice touches, like this little deep carbon detailed side accents and the beautiful twin turbo label at the top, the Lexus emblem in the center, some big air intakes off to the side. And the driving experience is very smooth, smoother than a V8 in my opinion, and has a little bit of that turbocharged punch, and the weight to power and balance all makes an amazing driving experience. So in Canada, the LS starts around the 100,000 mark. In the States, you're mostly around the 80,000 mark with packages, 4 different types. So we have the entry level, then we have the luxury, the executive, and the F Sport sort of in between there. In my opinion, the executive package is only worth it if you are gonna be in the backseat of the car. So if you're gonna Harvey Specter, be the one driven around, because all the executive really does is add features to the back, things like massaging seats, etc. The luxury is a really nice bang for buck, where you still get some amenities in the back, but most of the stuff is for the driver and front passenger. And one of my favorites is the sports. You get those really aggressive wheels, a sport-tuned suspension, a little bit more of that driver-oriented, but you lose a few of the luxurious features. So you tell me, which LS would you buy, or would you go with another full-size sedan from another brand? What's a car that a businessman like Harvey Specter and some gangsters like the Sopranos can both agree on? The LS 460, and this one beside me is the S4 package. Now, today's video is a little bit special to me because this is one of my personal cars, and there is a little bit of history behind how I ended up with this car, and I'll even tell you later in the video why this car was a big reason for me coming to Lexus in the first place. But before I get into that, make sure you hit like and subscribe for more Lexus-related content. Now, in my last video, I challenged the viewers to find me on Instagram and comment RX350 on one of my photos. I got a lot of entries, and today I pulled the name of Nishia Quash. And Nishia is gonna be sent this little Lexus gift. But don't worry, if you enter the contest, I'm gonna keep your name in the hat that I have. As well, after today's video, if you comment on one of my photos saying LS460, I'll enter you in for the next prize. So before I start showing you the car and going over some of the quirks and lovely things about it, I should mention why I chose this car, because when this car was traded into our dealership, I just bought my house and it was like the wrong time financially for me to be making any purchases. But for my whole life, not my whole life, for my whole dealership life, and even a little bit before then, I always wanted an LS460. Ever since seeing it in Suits when Harvey Specter was driven around in it. I know he was driven around in a couple different cars, but the LS460 always stuck out to me, especially the sport package. And I always told myself that when the right one came along, I would jump on it, no matter what. And the right one had to be a few things. It had to be black, because I'm a black car guy. You might know that from some of my other videos. It had to be the 2014, or maybe 15, or maybe 16 model, one of those 3 years. It had to be the S4 package, and it had to be one that needed a little bit of love. And that's what I'll go over a little bit today in this video, is that this one does need a little bit of love still. There's some quirks and a little bit of blemishes and stuff like that. And the reason I wanted one like that was so that I could slowly fix it up over time and, you know, not be so afraid if it's like a perfect car, even though I don't drive it a whole lot. So let's get into the front end. So because it being the S4 package, we have that first iteration of the spindle grille. And the spindle grille has changed a few times over the years. This is the one that goes vertically. And it is trimmed off by this chrome F-Sport shaped grille, I guess you could say, or bumper, with that reinforcement piece in the middle. In some of the newer cars, we see that behind the grille. And on there, we have our parking sensors. Now, while I'm sort of kneeling down beside the front end, you'll notice the license plate says VIP LSF. And there's a little bit of story of that as well. No, it doesn't mean that I'm a VIP, a very important person, or a very individual person. It actually is a little bit of a homage to that Japanese car culture of VIP cars, which is like those big sedans with big wheels, lower to the ground, et cetera, et cetera. And the reason I got this license plate was my friend Ahmed picked up a 2004 LS, and he did the license plate VIP LS, and he slammed it and put big wheels on it. So I didn't tell him I bought this car, and instead I got the same custom plate with the F at the end for F-Sport, because that's what mine is, and I pulled up to his business and parked it beside him for him to see. And obviously, like any good friend, his reaction was massive, and it was a really fun way to sort of celebrate both of our loves for the Lexus LS. Now, below the license plate, we see some of those blemishes start to unfold. You'll see the chrome does have this little crack in the middle, right where your eyes would go when you look at that front bumper. I am getting around to fixing that. I haven't yet, but it is on my list of things to do. I was just gonna wrap it in chrome at first, but I'm gonna replace sort of that whole chrome piece. The rest of the bumper, I did actually paint and refinish this bumper, because I always find when picking up a used car, that front bumper is such an important part of the face that if you can just pay a couple $100 and get it all refinished and painted, it makes the car look brand new. That's a little insider trick. One of my staff members, Bilal, taught me that whenever he picks up a used car, he always gets the front bumper painted. And I'm very, very grateful that he taught me that because it does make a huge difference. With this bumper, we have actual active air intakes here, or air ventilation. And these massive holes really suck in that air for the big brakes that I'm going to talk about in a second for cooling and for the tires and the brakes. Then we have a little bit more of that continuation of that front F-Sport grille, as well as an LED fog light that works really, really well. Above that, we have just this little section here where there is a headlight washer. I know I saw in the comments the other day, not everybody loves the headlight washers, but I think they're pretty cool. And then we have the daytime running light for like the Lexus signature daytime running light with dual adaptive LED headlights. So they move up, down, and left, right slightly. And then you'll actually see in the sort of like combination lamp there, we have a little cluster of LEDs for the signals. And those are so bright that if I'm ever at like a stoplight and I have my signal on, you can see all the signs around me light up amber as it's blinking because of how bright they are. And I did notice Lexus changed this in the newer model, so only a few years have that bright of daytime running light. There is another little blemish here that's slowly becoming a little bit of an issue, is I'm getting a little bit of fogging on this headlight lens. I recently just changed the headlights on another older car I have that maybe I'll talk about in another video. It's a very JDM legend car. And it changed the whole front end for me as well, just like the bumper did. So maybe I'll get a new lens or get these refinished soon because it definitely is becoming a little bit aged. Now, let's talk a little bit about the rest of the styling of the front end. So we have this big, massive hood that the F-Sport does really complement these body lines. So we have a little bit of a ramp divot here that sort of protrudes to the back. And then the hood itself, I know black, you can't really see it, but it has a little bit of body lines, both sort of in the middle and then along that seam there. In the silvers and the whites, you might see a little bit more. The black hides it a little bit. And the hood needs a little bit of a refinishing, but interesting enough, you'll see this fender actually sort of takes up a lot of the front end. The hood starts actually right here. So when you think about it, the hood starts past the headlight and then it protrudes backwards like that. So this fender is very massive and it takes up a lot of that front fascia look. Okay, so let me show you under the hood because that's a big reason for anybody to buy this car. So under the hood, we have the 4.6 liter V8. This is one of the smoothest engines Lexus has ever come up with. It's not the loudest engine, but it is very smooth and still very powerful, and it does have the 8-speed transmission, which back then was like a first, and it was mostly in like things like the F-Sports and stuff like that that you saw that. So under here, most of it is all covered over in plastic, except you can see I'm missing a piece right here. I still have it at home, but I had to jumpstart this car after it was sitting for most of the winter, and I just never put it back on. So that actually gives you a little bit of a peek underneath, and it even gives you a little hint of an accessory I might have added to the car that I'll talk about later. But other than that, it's all sort of covered in this plastic. I always thought that it's funny that this little plastic bit here looks like abs, like it looks like a 6-pack or like an 8-pack for some reason. I'm sure there's a reason for it, but and then we have the intake sort of at the bottom here, where it splits off into both sides of the V8. And your washer fluid sort of just off to the bottom right there. But like I said, most of that is just that engine and a huge, huge reason for buying this car. Also, you can see the hood shape when I really open it, how it's kind of got like that V to it. Let me show you to the side of the vehicle and one of my first custom mods that I did, even though it's more like an OEM Plus mod. And that is these 21-inch wheels. And I don't know if you've guessed what they're from yet, but it is the LC500. And when I first got these, one of the technicians, Tyler, who worked here at the time, noticed that we had a set of these around the dealership, and he was sort of comparing and noticed they would fit the LS460 that I had. So he begged me to just try it, like just put it on the hoist, throw them on and see what it looked like. And never in a million years did I expect them to look so good with this car. I don't know if it's the black matching the black and the chrome matching the chrome, but it almost looks like this car should have came this way from the factory. But instead, I have it as like an OEM Plus upgrade. So these are the 21-inch wheels from the LC500. I think it's the pre-2023 or 2024 LC500, either the convertible or that performance package. And on them are the Pilot Super Sports. Now the tire itself is a little overkill for the driving I do. And yes, these 21-inch wheels did take away a little bit from that soft ride that the factory wheels had. And I did really like the factory F-Sport wheels, but I do like these a little bit more. It just gives it that little bit more gangster look, I guess you could say. Behind those wheels, we have a jumbo brake kit. I actually thought for many years that it was a Brembo brake kit. I thought that was branded somewhere, but I can't seem to find it today while prepping for this video. But we do have this massive, I think 6-piston caliper and these huge ventilated front brakes. Now, the brakes themselves are very grabby, I find. So even though this is a very heavy car, whenever I touch the brakes on this LS, even with the bigger wheels, or before the bigger wheels, you can really feel it grab. It doesn't really slip much because it's more of that aggressive sport brake. And in fact, anytime one of my friends drives this car and I'm in the passenger seat, whenever they touch the brakes, you can feel us kind of like jerk forward. And it's good because those brakes do require a lot of cooling. Now, since they are so big, it does mean I'm constantly cleaning these wheels because it just gets caked in brake dust. And soon I'm gonna have to change those brake, I think pads and rotors I have to do soon. Even with like my discounted rate from working at a dealership, it's gonna be thousands of dollars per side for me to deal with. So I've been really postponing that because I only drive this car like 5,000 kilometers a year or something like that. But anyway, that is the first sort of custom that I did to the car. Looking at the rest of the side profile, so we do have the F-Sport logo. It is the F with the white background and Sport underneath. And then we sort of have this chrome protruding from the side. As I mentioned, I wasn't sure about the chrome accents at first, but they've really grown on me, especially once I tinted these windows to the legal amount in my place of living. Now, if you can tint where you live, this is definitely a sedan that looks really cool when all tinted out. And the chrome really ties in those wheels that I put on. So we have chrome around the windows, we have chrome door handles, as well as sort of this chrome kit at the bottom. And below that is part of that F-Sport body kit, I guess you could say. And I have met a guest of mine here. Actually, I met him on Instagram and then in the dealership where he had the, I think it's the, not the Artisan Spirits kit, but maybe the Tom's Racing kit or something like that on his LS, and it looked really sharp. So that was really cool. I do have the chrome at the bottom, as I mentioned, but another feature about the side profile is this. So when I open the door and I go to close it, we have soft close. I know that's such a small thing, and people in the comments are gonna be like, oh, like all of my base model blah, blah, blahs have soft close. At Lexus, we don't have it in anything usually except our flagship models. So to have that is really cool. And again, my friends, whenever they get in my car, they know that it's a cool feature. And they're like, well, if you paid for the soft closed doors, you have to use the soft closed doors. So anytime they go to leave my car, they slowly just like press it up and then just let that soft close suck it in. It's not like the soft close in your kitchen where you can just like slam the door and it like slows it down. It's the opposite. You have to like let it do the work. And that brings me to, you know, a little Amazon mod I did. And that is, I did put, you can't see it on the shiny floors we have here, but I did get one of those Lexus puddle lamps. So it sort of just goes into the bottom of the door panel here, and then it gives you that Lexus readout on the pavement. And that was like $20 on Amazon. Sometimes I really like it, and sometimes I'm like, it looks like it's from Amazon. So to each their own, I guess you could say there. As we get to the back of the car, you can see even that back door is equally as big as the front, if not bigger. Probably on the long wheelbase version, it is bigger. And even when you're not doing the soft close door, it's a solid door. Like, it just sounds perfect. Okay, let's look at the back of the LS. So the first thing is the taillights, and these remind me of sort of the afterburner that we see on things like the LC or even the new LS, but there is a big three-dimensional in this combination lamp. I don't know if you can tell from where you're sitting, if you're watching it on your TV or your phone, but these are very three-dimensional. You can see they're sort of like pieces of plastic or glass that are getting light from deeper in the taillight and then sort of like projecting it out or curving with it, sort of like a fiber optic, I guess. And it has that Lexus sort of emblem shape. And even as you get up cose to them, you can see little textured dots on one angle of them, and then it's frosted on the other. So in traffic, behind one of these, it does look really, really nice. We do have the LS 460. Mine is the all-wheel drive, so we see the all-wheel drive down at the bottom. I do have a big dent here that I got to take care of. And we have some chrome sort of tying in all that chrome we saw on the side and the Lexus emblem at the top. Towards the bottom of the bumper, we have some more chrome on the dual exhaust. I almost said quad exhaust, but it is dual. And a rear diffuser in the middle, all part of the sport package. Same thing, I have heard an aftermarket exhaust on these and it sounds very nice. So maybe one day I'll do that. But let's look in the trunk. It is a power trunk, so we're gonna just press that button, power open and power close, or you can just manually open and close it. It doesn't really fight you on it. And you'll see a mod that I did. Now, in my younger years, I was super into audio systems and big subwoofers and stuff like that, but for many years I got out of that. But this car just seemed to suit that loud bass, gangster rap type vibe to it. So I got these Infinity speakers installed from Mark at Connect Audio Video, who I used to work with when I did that sort of thing. He hooked it up and I was super happy to have a little bit of bass. And the car is so tight inside that even with a lot of power out here, I don't hear any rattles in the inside. And part of that is the Mark Levinson sound system. And integrating into that was a little tricky. In fact, Mark's been doing this like my whole life. And he told me that this is one of the hardest cars for him to work on, to be able to like run wires and stuff, because it's built so well that even running a power wire from under the hood to the trunk was like hours and hours and hours for him. Also back here, I bought this from work. This is a Water Demon drying cloth, and it is really good for a black car. I'm not sponsored by Water Demon, although I should be, so Water Demon, if you read this, let me know. But we do use this in our detail department. It's kind of like the new version of using a chamois. It's like an absorbing cloth. It's really good for black cars because it doesn't scratch the paint. This one I've had maybe for a year, and it's held up well. You have to keep it wet or moist, so I keep it in this little container, but I do use it, and it's amazing how much this makes your life easier when you have a black car. So I have that back here, as well as the medic kit and the manuals. I just kind of keep off to the side. But because the subwoofers take up that part of the trunk, I mainly only just use this for small things. I don't even really put groceries back there. But there has been times I went snowboarding and I was able to put snowboards back there because the trunk is so big. Other than that, we'll just close that and move on to the rest of the car. Okay, so inside the LS, let me just shut that and you can hear that thump. Let me go over a bunch of things here because the interior on the LS is very nice and it's hard to describe how nice it is on a video. So one is that thump that you just heard, me shutting the door, and on the door it is very heavy and there is a lot of nice materials. Everything from the soft touch leather to the little bit of aluminum, even where the seat controls are placed are very easy to get to and quick. And we even have that extra button to raise and lower the top of your 3-point harness, which is really nice. And then we just have a blacked out bezel here for the window controls, some hand stitched leather sort of, outlining this whatever panel, I guess you could say here. A little bit of space on the mat pockets, but nothing really to write home about. The rest of the dashboard, so we have some really nice black and silver accents to each other, and it's like a little bit of modern artwork that sort of goes from one side to the other. It's almost like the F Sport grille if you look really close at it, the vertical squiggly lines. And it kind of goes with, again, that silver or chrome and black vibe of the car. It does still have the Lexus clock, and this one is a GPS corrected clock. Now, I will say I'm having an issue with it, and I don't know what it is. I haven't even asked the mechanics about it yet, but this one is having trouble keeping time. I don't know if it's the GPS aspect of it. I don't know if it's just me not having the settings right, but it does tell the wrong time right now, so I always have to use my watch. Also, I got this cute little air freshener from the Lexus boutique. It's kind of discolored a little bit, but it does have refills. This one's like a cologne scent, so it keeps your car smelling nice. It's also like new car scent and some fruity smells and stuff like that. Let's start in the center console. So I'm not gonna really open up the armrest and show you what's in there because it's all like microfiber cloths and sunglasses and stuff, but the way it opens is it sort of just slides back. There's a quick little peek. In one motion, really easy to get at, really solid. It's held up really well. There's a couple shiny spots on the leather, but I do condition the leather once in a while. So it hasn't really worn through like I see on a lot of other cars of the same age and mileage. There is some stitching here as well on that sort of forward-facing vertical panel. And I always find the armrest is in a really good space for me. So like when I'm sitting here, I can kind of just rest on that armrest and rest the rest of my hand on the Lexus remote here. But before I get to the Lexus remote, let's talk about the seat controls. So on this particular one, we have heated and cooled seats in the front, and it's the dial setting one. So what you do is you actually just press on the little button, and that'll pop up the dial. And if you go over to the left, it's gonna be cooling and you'll hear those fans working. And when you go over to the right, it's gonna be heated, and obviously it's variable as well. And then when you wanna get it out of your way, you just press back down on it. So for me, I pretty much keep my seat on cool for the whole summer and heat for the whole winter. Definitely the cool setting isn't as cooling as it once was. I don't know if the perforation leather just have a little bit of clogs in it. I don't know if the fan's wearing out, but I will say that. Not to complain, but it isn't as cool as like the new cars that I get into. We also have the rear curtain button here. So that rear windshield, a curtain will come up and down when you press that button. And then we have our drive mode settings. So because this LS has the air ride, we have a button for height. So what you can do is actually raise the car so that when you get in and out of it, you're higher off the ground. This is a really good feature for any of my older guests that, you know, for one, have the money for an LS, but also don't want an SUV, even though the height of an SUV is easier for them to get in and out. So what they do is they press that height high button, and then when they park the car, the air ride goes up. And then when they get in it, or sorry, when they start driving, it goes down, and vice versa. Then when they park, it goes up again. So that is a really cool feature. It does do it a little bit. Now you can trick it. So you can get a module, I'm probably not supposed to be saying this because I'm a Lexus dealer, that can trick the car into lowering it. Now that would void your warranty. I can't condone that type of behavior, but my friend Ahmed did do it to his LS and it's lower, and I think he's had some issues, but it was like a cheap trick that he did. Then we have traction control off, and we have a snow mode, and the snow mode can be combined with, we have comfort to the left, and when it's in comfort, you'll see comfort pop up on the dash. We have eco, which is if you do the left again. So going to the left will cycle between comfort and eco. Then we have, if we push down on the dial, that gives us normal mode. And again, we'll see things change to show that it's in normal mode. Then when we go to the right once, it goes sport, and you'll get a little animation of the engine and transmission on the big screen that you have. And if we go over to the right again, it does sport plus. And now it's the same animation, but it shows the suspension and the steering now on that little animation. And this one has a special electronic assisted steering that's variable gear ratio. So when you put it in Sport Plus, it really does tighten up the amount of input needed to get a greater output from the steering controls. And this was a really cool setting for me, and this whole control panel, because the first summer I had this car, I took it up to Muskoka for a solo road trip, and I could be comfortable on bumpy roads. But then when I got into like a windy, smooth road, I put it in Sport Plus, and this was one of the best handling heavy cars I've ever driven. And it made me really justify the purchase because I was able to like have fun on these windy, hilly roads, and it didn't feel like a giant sedan that I was driving. So do keep that in mind when you go to buy one of these. Then we have the Lexus remote here, and some people love it, some people hated it. I think back in 2014, or 2012, whenever it came out. This was a really cool way of being able to control this screen up here without getting fingerprints on it. And because of that, the screen was able to be recessed into the dashboard, and that helped with like things like sun glare and stuff like that. So the remote itself is leather wrapped. We have some stitching, and then we have this little floating piece here. And I remember the first time I felt this floating piece and I hovered over an icon, and you can feel it in the mouse. So you feel that little bit of force feedback. And it makes it from being like a free range mouse to like having notches in it. First time I felt that, I thought it was the coolest thing I've ever experienced in my entire life. Now I'm back to liking touchscreens, but for the most part, I barely use it because the car is set up the way I want it to. So really the only time I have to use that is if I'm like putting in an address or something like that. But it still held up well. I know some people hate it. I don't mind it. Then we have menu and map. So the map will always just default it to the maps screen. It doesn't matter if you're in settings, it doesn't matter if you're in like the main screen, map will put you back there. Speaking of physical buttons, we also have some physical radio, media, pass track, all those things, pause. And those are some quick little shortcuts so that if I wanted to just pop over to radio, I hit radio, pop over to media, just like that map setting did, and you can do that. And we have some really high quality knobs on either side. So we have the volume knob, which is metal, and it's like a brushed aluminum, and the tune one. I actually I always forget the tune one is there. But we have the volume knob and then our climate control. Now this LS has climate concierge. So what you should be able to do is just hit, your temperature, 21 degrees Celsius, let's say, and the car will do the thinking for you. So it'll, put it on fresh air or recirc and change where it's flowing. And back when this first came out, it was one of the best systems out there for HVAC in a car. It's gotten a lot better, even in the new LSs with like lasers that get your body temperature and stuff like that. But back in the day, this worked quite well. For whatever the reason, I have it set up that it sort of defaults to like 25 all the time when I turn on the car, but I always just go ahead and change it. And then we have our four-way button, which also lights up. Above that, we have that illuminated clock that I mentioned about earlier, and then that big screen up there that you can use split screen. You can see things like your climate control, some fuel economy stats, etc. Like right now it's saying I'm averaging 12.2 liters per 100 kilometer, and I can see all that from the setting. And there is some advanced settings that I would recommend checking out. Things like vehicle customization, where you can customize things like your lights and your door locks and your climate settings, as well as how many signals your car flashes when you do like the soft signal change, and also the driver easy exit, which I always recommend as well. That's pretty much it for the center. On the dashboard itself, so we have trip and reset on one side, we have the dimmer and the headlight washer on the other, and then we can just change what we see from hitting the display. So things like fuel economy, average fuel economy, range, elapsed time, average speed, etc. Right now, I have just over half a tank. It's saying I could go about 368 kilometers because the tank is quite big. Everything else on there is pretty much analog, including the speedometer. On the steering wheel, we have the classic cruise control switch. We have answer and hang up. We have some paddle shifters. The paddle shifters are pretty good. Not quite as quick as like an ISF, but they still do the trick for when you want to be able to tell the car what gear to be in. Because it's an 8-speed, you don't want it to be like searching around and stuff. Then we have our volume and radio controls to the left, and our brake hold is right on the steering wheel. So that's kind of a nice feature to give your leg a little break. You can just hit brake hold. This car does have the electronic parking brake. It's sort of just like down here. I always just leave it in auto. And I always leave my mirrors to auto as well, so that when I lock it, they fold in. On the left, I have my blind spot and parking sensors, my heated steering wheel, and then there's like a little change holder, which I have a little bit of American money in there for when I cross the border. But that's pretty much everything on the dash. Some of the things you can't see from this angle is it is an Alcantara roof liner. The roof liner is like an ultra suede Alcantara, which is pretty rare in the Lexus world. I mean, now we're seeing it in some cars, but that is a really nice touch once you notice it, even on these B pillars here. And I think that really helps with keeping the cabin so quiet, because it really is a quiet cabin. We have a sunglass holder right below the light, which I have some old sunglasses in. And we have on the headrests of both F-Sport seats, we have the F-Sport logo really embroidered in there, which is nice. And also you'll notice this passenger seat, I can move without any hands. I can move it by these little controls here. So the driver can move that passenger seat, but also the passenger in the back can move that passenger seat as well. As for the driver's seat, my favorite feature of it is the thigh extension. The extension does protrude out quite a bit, which is great for long drives. I really like that, being a tall guy. It's probably one of the best I've ever felt for how far it comes out. All we just have is your typical, I think it's like a 4-way lumbar. You can raise and lower the headrest sort of by the power on the side. Oh, another little touch that Lexus put in here is this holy crap handle is padded leather and perforated leather, so it matches the rest of the interior. So don't forget, this is a flagship, so even those little details do matter. Normal vanity mirror, nothing too exciting there. So let's move to the back seat. Okay, so let's check out the back seat of the LS, because sometimes owners of LSs actually sit in the back seat. So the S-Sport doesn't have a ton of amenities, but since it's really dark back here, let me just turn on my little vanity light here so you can see me a little bit better. And the vanity mirror on the LS for the back passengers was designed so that that celebrity getting out of it can quickly check to make sure their face is in order before they ultimately get out and see the paparazzi. And that's on both sides. It is like a very big mirror and has that little light. The door panel itself does have, believe it or not, a what looks like cigarette ashtray. It says no cigarettes. So I think it's just maybe a change purse, but it's deep and you actually can't remove it. So it definitely would not be a good idea to have ashes in there. We don't have any curtains on here because it's the F-Sport, but we do have the auto up and down feature and just some aluminum, and like I said, it's a big door. It is really dark back here because I have the curtain up and I have tints, like really dark tints. I usually just leave this part down. So on this armrest that comes down in the F-Sport, I can raise and lower the curtain, which is really nice, so I can press that. I also have heated seats on both sides, and I can set those to auto, or I can control them by 1, 2, and 3. I have a little bit of a console here, console, I guess I should say. And this piece itself is really big and pops out some cup holders, just like magic. When you have that open, it's very executive-like back here. And in fact, I can even adjust my headrest to be even more executive. It almost makes it like a pillow, which is quite nice. Then we have a pass-through that opens up into the trunk. Nothing too crazy there. It just calls it a trunk storage extension. I like it because it gives me more bass from my subwoofers. And you can even fold up the center headrest, which I didn't know actually did that until right now. But I've driven around back here with my friends driving, and it's pretty sweet. I'm not gonna lie. For being a sedan, like, if I had to be driven around, it's gonna be in an LS, because I don't think you can get car sick in an LS. Like, it's just so comfortable, it's big, it's luxurious, and especially for this other passenger, like, to being able to move that front seat up gives you just a mile of space back here. And it's hard to believe that probably who enjoys it back here the most is my dog. This is a big reason why I have this car, is I put a little towel down, and my big golden doodle is who hangs out here the most back here. In fact, now when I take him in other cars, he sometimes cries because this one is so smooth. We also have some vents in the center, as well as a little plug. It's like a 12 volt, 120 watt cigarette lighter style plug. We also have some vents on the B pillars, which is quite nice. We can add some spotlights here. And it's funny that those are LED. So the two spotlights on either side are LED. I don't know if someone has changed that before, because almost everything else in this car is sort of that yellow halogen style look. I don't know if there's a reason for that. Okay, so in closing, my LS460 is one of my favorite cars that I have. I am averaging 11.7 liters per 100. I just checked, and from the factory, it says I should be doing 11.4. So that's pretty good considering I put some big beefy wheels on it. And the fact that I sort of use this car as, like, I don't know, more utility and luxury. Like, me and my friends will take it out if we're going out for the night. It's really cool to mob around in. But I've also had surfboards strapped to the top for the first couple years. And it was sort of like my surfboard car, because even the previous owner lived on the beach, so there was a lot of sand and stuff like that in the HVAC system. So I'm still always finding sand, so I'm not afraid to, like, use it a little bit. It's not like a garage queen all the time. And because of that 360 horsepower V8, it is a very smooth power plant. It's a very heavy car, especially with that air ride, to give it that nice soft ride. And it is one of my favorite cars still in the lineup. Even getting in and out of it today, you can smell that leather. And I'm so used to like a new car smell, but this one you can really smell that genuine leather. And I still get so excited about this car whenever I talk about it, whenever I drive it. It reminds me of Suits. I've nicknamed it Rachel from Suits, because of, I don't know, sometimes I just name my cars. Maintenance-wise, it's been pretty good. I do have the brakes coming up. I have to do that. My Lexus service department has been reminding me of that. These tires are probably gonna wear out soon as well. I have the winters, which kind of split up the mileage. And I gotta do a little bit of paint work, a little bit of chrome work, just to get it sort of up to the perfection standards. But this is probably a car I'm going to keep for as long as possible anyway. Anyway, let me know what you think about this video in the comments below. If you want to see some of my other cars and vehicles and toys, let me know. I'd be happy to do a little bit of a walk around on those and tell the story as to why I purchased them. Sometimes working at a car dealership is like, you know, someone who works at a cell phone place. In fact, of like, they always have new cell phones, like when they see one that they like. And sometimes car dealerships are like that too. Hi, I'm Dustin Mason, and this is the new Lexus LS. Over 20 years ago, Lexus launched the brand with a flagship LS. It started out as a vehicle that was made to compete in the highest class of luxury vehicles as an over-engineered competitor. Let's see if it still has what it takes. front end of the new LS has been greatly improved with squared off intake ducts, a new triple beam LED headlight system, and an overall presence that when you see on the road, it makes you do a double take and say, what is that? Looking at the side profile, the first thing you'll notice is an exaggerated front wheel well that flows into the fender and reveals the side silhouette of a Grand Coupe style elongated sedan. Now for the rear of the vehicle, I have to do my favorite thing, and that's hit the lights. There's something said about a vehicle that can still look this premium during nighttime driving. You could be a few car lengths back and still see that this is a premium vehicle down the road. Let's be honest, one of the big reasons to buy an LS is because of the interior. Once you open one of the soft closing doors, you're greeted by an interior full of high-end materials. Literally everything you touch feels luxurious. Floating armrests, aluminum trim everywhere you look. The new LS, Lexus has moved the screen a little bit closer, and now you can touch it or use the trackpad underneath. Some shortcuts have been made and added to the center console, and the rearview mirror can turn into a camera with the flip of a switch. One of my favorite features and one of the most luxurious features of this car is that when you put it in park, the vehicle can automatically raise the air suspension so that the vehicle is at a more comfortable height for getting in and out of. This LS that we're sitting in is the F-Sport package. You also get an LFA-inspired TFT gauge cluster, meaning when I press this button, the gauge physically moves over instead of just being like a digital screen and gives you more information like a G-force meter and other goodies. This LS 500 F-Sport, in my opinion, is the perfect blend of luxury and sport. It's a car made for Canada, from the mountain roads of British Columbia to the scenic wine route of Niagara. How far has Lexus come in 10 years? Well, today I have a 2014 LS 460 beside a 2024 LS 500. To answer the question, what has changed and which one would I buy? Stick around to the end of the video for that. I'm Justin Mason from Performance Lexus in St. Catharines. Make sure you hit like and subscribe for more Lexus related content.
Been a while since you felt like this. Been a while since you felt like this. Been a while since you felt like this. There must be something wrong. I guess I found out. Been a while since you felt like this. Been a while since you felt like this.
Okay, so let's start with the 2014 LS 460. This is the F-Sport package, which gives it this F-Sport grille. It's sort of one of the first iterations of it, so it's in two parts. You can see the upper and then the support beam in the center and then the lower. And again, it's the earlier versions of the spindle grille, but holds up very well and is trimmed nicely by this Lexus chrome outer. I thought that I would more prefer like a dark chrome outer, but with the black exterior, I think this one suits it very well. In terms of other things in the bumpers, we have actual real venting for the brakes and the tires, as well as some extra spindle grille off to the side, some fog lights, some parking sensors, tow hook cover in the center, and headlight washers, which I always do love. Now I have the daytime running lights on to show you how crisp and clean those are. They aren't quite frosted, which I wish they were. They're actually more like just diffused, if that makes sense. And these very, very bright signals and amber four-ways. It's some of the brightest I've ever seen in any car because it's not like an LED strip, it's more like LED bulbs blasting off in your face. Above that, we have some nice body lines, a very nice hood that's huge with a bulge in the center, as well as a fender with some nice angles as well. The interesting thing to think about with this style of LS is the hood sort of isn't most of the front end. Like the hood actually stops here when you think about it, and you have this big fender piece that's on top, where most cars, the hood goes all the way to the side. This is actually stationary, and that hood kind of goes to a point, and I always really liked that. Over to the LX 500 in beautiful silver color. We have some F-Sport styling grille, but this is actually a luxury package. So you can see that styling has sort of just spread to the rest of the lineup when it comes to packages, and a much bigger grille, but a very similar chrome outer. So instead of having the middle sort of pillar be exposed, it's sort of hidden behind that spindle grille, and it's just all gotten a little bit bigger over the years. We also have a very nicely frosted daytime running light that wraps around that headlight just a little bit more, and still a very bright amber light. It's a little more crisp. It's not quite as bright as the previous generation, but the headlights are much brighter than the previous generation because they're a triple beam instead of just a single beam. We also still have the headlight washer to spray onto those headlights, some parking sensors, a tow hook cover, and a big hood that actually goes all the way to the fenders instead of being a little more narrow. I actually like the old one better for that, but I like these body lines a lot more. We have this really sort of sharp drop-off edge that diffuses into the side, and then a bigger one in the center that really gives you a nice vision line when you're driving it. So getting to the side of the 2024 LS, we have this 20-inch multi-spoke wheel. And behind it is a big brake kit with air suspension so that when you park, the car can raise up, you can get out, and when you start driving, it'll go down again. And that comes standard on most models for the new LS. 14 LS 460, we have a 19-inch two-tone wheel. Actually, when this wheel came out, I thought it was the coolest looking thing because of the fronts were kind of like a brushed aluminum with a clear coat on it. And then the sides are all sort of like just like a gray. Behind that 19-inch wheel, we have a Brembo big brake kit because it's the LS F-Sport package. And the brakes are very grabby and very expensive to replace, but they last a long time. And it really does make the car feel a lot lighter than it is. We also have air ride in this so that when you park, the car can come up and can go down when you start driving. And I've even seen some people get a special module to make it go lower if you wanted to. Kind of tricks the system a little bit. The doors on the 2024 LS seem a lot modern, but they're actually a little bit outdated now in 2024. So we have chrome on the outside and a little dimple on top to actually lock the vehicle. You can just pull it to unlock it, and it has soft closing doors. It's one of the few Lexuses in the lineup to have soft core doors, so it'll just suck right in. But the size and weight of it really give you an idea of how luxurious the LS is. Even the back one is massive. Actually, the back door sometimes seems bigger than the front door and has the soft close as well as it sucks in, or you can just feel the heavy weight of that back door. So on the 2014, we have definitely an outdated handle, but it still works. So it is fully wrapped in chrome, and instead of the dimple to lock it, it's an actual button. So you actually press that. However, the unlock is still the same as the new one, where you can just touch your finger inside there. It is a very heavy door. In fact, I think it's heavier than the new one, and it still has the soft close. So even in 2014, the soft close works the exact same as the 2024. And even that rear door, it is heavy. It's definitely heavier than the new one. And actually, the soft close works probably just as quick as well. So zooming out to look at the side of the 2024, you can see that it has chrome that sort of wraps around all of the door windows, and it has a pretty sleek profile. In fact, the 2024 LS 500 sort of more has like a coupe-like silhouette, and because of that, as it tapers to the back, it's very aerodynamic and very sleek. It still has a very big quarter panel, which I like. It gives a little bit of that presence and shows you how big this vehicle is. In fact, it replaces the L, the long wheelbase version of the LS from previous years, because of how big it is. So The side profile of the 2014 is a little different. It's a little boxier, but we do still have the chrome that wraps around as well as the chrome at the bottom. And you'll see it's not quite as coupe-like, I would say, with the silhouette. So it's a little more rounded. It stays high for a little bit longer and then eventually tapers down. But it does still have the big quarter panel here that gives you a little bit of that presence. In the 2014 era, if you wanted more back seat space, you would go to the 460L, which would be the long wheelbase version. So how about the rear design language? Let's look at the taillights. On the 2014, we have these interesting three-dimensional shapes in behind that taillight lens, and they sort of have a few different layers to it. We see this design language translate into newer models, just a newer take on it. The interesting thing is the taillight lens is actually curved, and because of those three-dimensional shapes on the inside of the lens, it's like peeking through a crystal ball or like a snowball and seeing stuff go on inside. And that's what it is. It's very three-dimensional. It curves with that lens, and I really like it. Then we have this chrome underneath the Lexus emblem. We have LS460, all-wheel drive because it is the all-wheel drive version, and since it's the sport version, at the bottom we have a rear diffuser and some exhaust ports as well. As for the back of the 2024, those taillights are a little bit less three-dimensional. However, there still is some depth to them. We see still a layered design where each one of those frosted sort of L shapes are sort of like stacked and staggered on top of each other, but they are definitely a lot more crisp and a lot less rounded. They're not sort of wrapping on the vehicle as it did on the 2014. Back here, we still have a little bit of chrome, just like the other one, with the Lexus emblem in the same spot. It says LS500 all-wheel drive, and there is no rear diffuser at the back here, which is interesting. It's sort of just, maybe just like an accent piece. That could be because it's not the F Sport though. So sitting in the 2024 LS in the luxury package, obviously no one is surprised. It is very comfortable. The seat has many, many adjustments. It has massaging front seats, heated and cooled front seats, and there's just so much cushion support and customization there that it's an absolute dream to sit in here. This one is the Palomino interior. We have some beautiful wood grain appointed all over the place, and one of the most pretty door panels I've ever seen in my life with this sort of floating armrest. It's super comfortable. It's more of an extension of the seat than a separate moving door piece, I guess you could say. Obviously the latest and greatest, so we have the newest Lexus Safety Sense with things like traffic jam assist, bird's eye view, self-parking, tons and tons of tech. They eliminated the Lexus remote touchpad, brought that screen closer, and it's an updated optically bonded glass with Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, all the latest and greatest stuff with a really crisp display. We have another beautiful new display as the gauge cluster. It's not the old TFT one anymore for 2024. It's actually been updated to just this crisp, customizable screen that's there. And it is really gorgeous. We have a massive heads-up display, multiple drive modes. We have Comfort, Normal, Sport, and Sport Plus. Because of that air suspension, all of that works very nicely. And it makes this car feel less like a limousine and more like a luxury tour, which is really nice. So kind of like what the GS used to be, where it's fun to drive, it's smooth to drive, and it still has lots of room for everybody else. Alcantara headrests, as well as very nice appointments everywhere. The dash seems very layered. There's amazing accent lighting to showcase all of the design art, is what I would call it. And overall, just an amazing experience being in the front seat. All right, I'm very excited to sit in the back of the 2024 now and start with that measurement. So the seat to seat, I guess you could say, is 11 inches. So a little bit bigger there. And I'm just gonna push this back and we're 28. So even right off the hop, it is bigger back here, which I was a little sort of skeptical about. The roof is definitely a little bit lower. But I have a party trick for that. When you fold down this massive center console, not council, I have some controls here to be able to move the seats around. And I can recline this seat quite a ways. I'm gonna do it all the way for you. I'm almost laying down right now. and I have lots of headroom now. My legs aren't quite touching, they're almost touching, it's very close, but the experience is so different. So much of this car is tailored to the back seat. And also on here, I have heated and cooled seats and some other things like being able to open and close things like the curtains, which is really nice. So I can actually just press a button and that'll happen. Also, we have a little bit of storage here, some cup holders up front with some really nice glossy wood grain. Alcantara, I have the same classic vanity mirrors, although the light is a little bit more of modern frosted glass. And speaking of lights, the map lights here, I have two different types. One has like a crystal finish, which is very beautiful when the light hits it. And the other one is actually got two settings. So you can have a really bright map light or a little bit more dim of a bright light. Also, the ambient lighting in here is night and day. The other LS felt very dark inside, which is still okay. This one is a lot more bright and warm. There's sort of ambient lights shining on bits of the door where the ambient lights on the other one was just sort of at your feet. And overall, just a lot more comfortable and luxurious for sure. But let's hear the sounds when you fire it up. Okay, so it does feel like a totally different car getting into the 2014 LS F Sport. The seats are still very comfortable. They don't have as much support as the other ones. Now, this car is a little bit older. It's got 140,000 K on it, so it could just be worn down. I will say the leather has held up well. You can tell it's a high quality leather. It is getting a little shiny in a few spots, but the age is showing a little bit of character, which is nice. And I do like that the headrests have F Sport very much protruding from them. I think that's a really nice touch. Okay, everything else. So the steering wheel has perforated leather on the sides, which is very grippy. We have aluminum trim across the whole dashboard, and all the materials feel very, very good and high quality. I don't have any type of radar cruise control or lane departure alert or anything like that, because that was starting to just become more in the higher packages at that time. We do have some switches and controls here for the recessed big screen. Now, sometimes I do like the recessed screen because one, it doesn't get any glare from the sun. Two, you don't leave any fingerprints because you use the mouse. Now, when this mouse first came out, I did love it. I got used to it very quickly. I thought it was really intuitive. It's not much of a distraction. Now I know the more latest tech can be a little bit more intuitive. But it's still in a nice spot where you're still just relaxed when you use it. You don't have to reach way up or anything like that. It's very sort of like a second nature. Also, we have things like comfort mode, sport, and Sport Plus. So because of that air ride, the Sport Plus can really tighten things up. And I can tell you from experience, it's nice to have the best of both worlds. I can put it in comfort when I'm in the city and it's bumpy, and the air ride will just kind of softly float me across those bumps, or I can tighten things up in Sport Plus and really push this big heavy car to its limit, which is nice. We also have a snow mode, some heated and cooled seats, a rear sunshade for just that very back, and a little hidden is I can actually control this front seat from switches on the side. That's mostly for the back seat, but it is nice to be able to reach over and touch that. We have the classic Lexus clock, no heads-up display, nothing to write home about with the gauge cluster. It's just needles, and it seems to work. I do have blind spot, heated steering wheel, stuff like that. Overall, not a ton of amenities for being a full-size luxury car, but it is the sport model, so it's not supposed to have a ton of amenities. Okay, so quickly sitting in the back of the 2014 LS, it is very comfortable back here. I don't have a ton of amenities going on, but it's still a really relaxing experience. The leather is very high quality. I even have things like the vanity mirror. So before getting out, I can check that mirror, and that's what having a big Lexus is all about. I do have the controls for the front seat here to move. And if I fold down this, I can control my heated seats and also the rear curtain behind me with a little bit of storage. I think there's cup holders up here. Yes, there is. I have a little bit of a charger there and some vents, which is nice. Overall, really good appointments. Oh, I do have a pass-through, which is a nice touch. And another nice touch is the little armrest here. Sorry, the arm hook thing is padded leather, which I thought was really important. Actually, everything you touch is pretty much padded leather. But I did want to measure something. I wanted to see, so I'm 6'1", and I wanted to see two things. One, the driver's seat to the back here, which is about 27 inches. And also wanted to see the driver's seat to the front of the cushion, which is about 10 inches. So I wanted to compare that to the new 2024 one. But let's see how it sounds. That is a V8 for sure. It's not nearly as quiet as the new 3.4 liter V6. However, it does have a little bit of that character to it, and I like it. Okay, so what about powertrains? The 2014 LS has a V8, a 4.6 liter V8 with the mid 300s horsepower. The new 2024 LS has a 3.4 liter V6 twin turbo with well over 400 horsepower. Now, I did think that the old one would be heavier, but with all the gadgets and comfort and luxury, the new one is actually a little bit heavier. However, it has a 10-speed transmission versus the 8-speed transmission, and that mated with that new engine creates better fuel economy. So the question is, which one would I buy? Well, I'll let you in a little secret. I did buy this one. This is one of my personal vehicles, my 2014 LS460, and I love so much about it, the character, the V8, all of those things, and how smooth this V8 is amazing. But the creature comforts of the new one, that lush interior, all the technology, the back seat space, the massaging seats, all of those things, to me, would be where I would go. In fact, if I could just take that interior and put it in my 2014, I'd be a very happy camper. Also, this twin turbo V6 has a driving experience that feels more like a small sports car when you want it to be, and I really like that as well. So let me know in the comments below which one you would choose, and please let me know what you thought of this video, if there's any other comparison videos you would like me to do when it comes to new versus old and what has changed over the years. I'm Dustin Mason from Performance Lexus, and I'll see you in the next one.